So this corrections officer falls in love with a prisoner and then helps bust him out of jail. Now the officer's name is Vicky, and Vicky is 44 years old when this story starts, and she's living in Alabama working as a corrections officer at the county jail. But one day in 2009, her life starts to fall apart because her fiance tragically dies in a car accident. And Vicky is of course devastated because who wouldn't be? So to help her get through the loss, she starts working a lot more. Like a lot, like 50, 60 hours a week. This jail becomes her whole life. And over the next 11 years, she keeps working extra hard. She gets promoted, she wins Employee of the Year 4 different times, and she starts climbing the ranks until she becomes the assistant director of the jail. But unfortunately, all this work and all these promotions and stuff, they're great, but apparently Vicky is still feeling lonely after the loss of her husband, even after all these years. But then, in 2020, she finally meets someone who makes her feel better. A guy who's gonna change her life forever. She meets this guy, Casey. But Casey isn't just some random guy she met on a dating app. He's actually a dangerous criminal who's already serving 75 years in prison, but he was transferred to Vicky's jail while he awaits trial for a different, separate murder. Here's a picture of his creepy ass. Now, regardless of what a terrible guy he is, for whatever reason, Vicky thinks Casey is fine, and Casey also thinks Vicky is fine. And so they get to talking and they hit it off, and over time, they start secretly dating. Now, it's obviously against the rules for the assistant director of the county jail to date an inmate who is locked up in that very jail. But whatever, they're going for it. And they're like sneaking around and they're making eyes at each other and they're passing little love letters to each other. They talk on the phone sometimes, so I guess he has a secret phone somehow. And at least one time, they even allegedly go into a jail cell and they smash. So it sounds like they're getting pretty serious. And this insanely risky relationship goes on for 2 years. So now it's 2022 and they're still together, secretly of course. But then Vicky realizes that these limited periods of time that she's getting with Casey while he's in jail, it's just not enough for her. She wants more. She loves him. She loves him so much and wants him all to herself without constantly having to sneak around and keep everything low key. So she comes up with an insane plan to help Casey escape from the jail. After he escapes, she's gonna sell her house and then take the money and retire from her job. And then I guess she and Casey will run away together and live happily ever after somehow. And it sounds insane, but they're gonna do it. And so Vicky, she starts preparing. She puts her house up for sale, she empties out her bank accounts, she goes shopping and buys a bunch of clothes for Casey, she buys this car, and she buys some firearms too, because, just in case they get into a shootout. She even goes into an adult store and buys some toys for smashing and stuff. Ugh. Then, the day before the escape is about to go down, she announces to her coworkers that she's gonna retire and that tomorrow will actually be her last day. And her coworkers are shocked because Vicky, who's always worked 50 to 60 hours a week, is suddenly just gonna leave? Okay. So those coworkers decide that they're gonna throw her a retirement party the next day. So the next morning, her coworkers put together a little send-off party for her, and she's there with them, and at some point, Vicky tells one of her staff that she needs to take one of the inmates, Casey, out for a mental health evaluation, which would happen in court, which the court is in a different part of town. This is, of course, bullshit. This is actually where they plan to make their escape. This is where it gets really dangerous for them. And so Vicky gets Casey out of his cell, and she escorts him out of the building, like it's all routine business. And this is actually security footage of her walking out with him. Notice that he is behind her, and here you can see them getting into her patrol car. So they get into the car. Then she drives to a nearby parking lot where they change clothes and they jump into the new car that she recently bought. And from there, they flee the state. They start driving north for a few hours and they go from Alabama all the way up to Tennessee. Meanwhile, back at the jail, almost 6 hours have gone by since Vicky left with an inmate. And so people are like, isn't she supposed to be coming back? And so they contact the sheriff and they're like, Vicky and this prisoner have been gone a really long time. And so the sheriff looks at the security footage of them leaving the jail, and immediately he knows something is up. Because notice in the footage how Casey walks behind Vicki. Casey is considered a violent offender, which the officers don't allow violent offenders to walk behind them because they could easily get attacked from behind. So this breaks protocol. Also, Vicki doesn't have another officer escorting him with her. That also breaks protocol. And so, boom, police start investigating. And pretty quickly, they find her abandoned patrol car in the nearby parking lot where they had changed cars. They also end up finding some security footage of Vicki and Casey driving in their new ride. And since they've now left the state and crossed state lines, the U.S. Marshals are now involved, and Vicki and Casey are officially wanted criminals. Meanwhile, Vicki and Casey, they know the police are after them, like it's been all over the news. And these two, they can't risk sticking with one car for too long, so in Tennessee, they ditch their ride again, and they get another one, this truck. Then they drive that truck from Tennessee over 175 miles all the way to Indiana. Once they're there, they swap cars again, a third time. They pick up a gray Cadillac at a local car wash somehow. After that, they rent a room at a local motel and they lay low for a while. And no one knows they're hiding out there, so it looks like they aren't getting caught anytime soon. Until they kind of screw it all up. When they switch cars back at that car wash, a security camera actually caught them driving off. And so now the US Marshals know that they're driving a gray Cadillac. So that's what they're looking for. And it doesn't take long before they get a tip that the car has been spotted, parked near a motel. So after 11 days of Vicki and Casey being on the run, police finally know where they are. And I don't know if Vicki and Casey realize they're being watched by police or if they just coincidentally decided to leave, but around this time they get back into the car and they leave. And that is when police start following them. And so, woo, they try and pull them over. But Vicki and Casey, they're like, fuck you, because they aren't about to give up. And pretty soon, this turns into a full-on police chase. And so Vicki and Casey and all these police cars, they're speeding along and they're trying to get away. And Casey drives them off the road and onto this grassy field, and suddenly, boom, they collide with one of the police cars, and bam, their car flips onto its side and it lands in a ditch. And so Vicki's sitting there in this wrecked car, and they're surrounded by now, and there's nowhere to run. And she's terrified. I mean, she knows that if she gets captured, she'll be sent to jail. But this time, as an inmate. And she definitely doesn't want that. And so Vicki picks up a pistol, and blam, she unalives herself. Then police get Casey, and bam, they arrest him. Here's some actual footage of him getting arrested. Also, here's his mugshot. And so Casey gets life in prison, which he kind of already had.